Welcome to Countdown to Classic, a podcast that educates, informs, and gossips about World of Warcraft Classic. Each week, we discuss the news, hot button issues, and content of the highly anticipated WoW Classic. But before we get to that, I want to let you know that you can find all things Countdown to Classic online at countdowntoclassic.com. And please add us on social media at Insta and Facebook at Countdown to Classic. You'll also find us on Twitter at Count2Classic with the number 2. I absolutely want to hear your feedback or input on the show, so please do get back to me, guys. Drop me a line on all socials, or you can also email me at feedback@countdowntoclassic.com. Now, guys, this is the very first episode of Countdown to Classic. And why am I doing this, you might ask? How am I going to be doing this? Well, those are all very good questions. Now, here's how it's going to go, guys. The format will be a Sunday episode and a Wednesday episode. Every Sunday, every Wednesday, like clockwork. That's how I'm hoping to do it. Now, there will be 2 parts to these episodes, so they'll be very different. The Sunday episode will be a episode all about the forum news. And basically what I plan to do, guys, is to report back to you about what people are talking about online in the forums about WoW Classic. I'll have segments that'll break things down. There'll be a segment called Forum and Fauna, Winner Winner Chicken Dinner, Anger Management, Memory Lane. You'll get used to all of these, guys. The Wednesday episode, however, will be all about the lore. We're focusing on classic lore. Now, the segments for that episode will be a scoop of vanilla. That's what we said. Anger management, tidbits, and top 5. Guys, this will all make much more sense as you get into the swing of things and we get a few episodes deep. Now, your next question might be, well, who am I? I'm glad you asked. Guys, my name's Josh Corbett. I'm clearly, I hope you worked out by now, an Australian from the accent. I'm a 35-year-old living here in Sydney. I am a podcast veteran. I'm one of the 3 co-hosts on the movie podcast, The Cinephiles. You can find us at cinephiles.com. That's SINNERFILES. If you're into a comedy movie podcast and just want to have a laugh with your favorite movies of all time. But other than that, I am an avid WoW fan and player, guys. I go back to the vanilla days. I absolutely put more than enough time into Classic back in the day. Much like the rest of you, I did kind of quit around the time of Cataclysm. Now, a few months into Cataclysm, I pulled up stumps and sort of thought, oh, this is going in a direction I'm not really comfy with. And so I retired, and reading things online, it seems to be the case with a lot of you people that have been pining for classic WoW over the last couple of years. So I'm glad that a few of us kind of are in the same boat. Here's where we're not in the same boat, guys, and I hope you don't hold this against me. I am not a WoW professional. I'm not the go-to authority on all things WoW. Please don't presume that I'm here jumping on a soapbox and telling you how things are going to be and getting angry and loud about do this, do that, Blizz, or else. This is not the intention of this podcast, guys. I am simply here as a mouthpiece for you, the people. I am delivering the news of what the people are talking about. I'm not here to give an aggressive opinion. I'm just here as somewhat of a neutral party, even though I do have some predilections of my own, just to report back on what we're all talking about, guys. Things have obviously got relatively nasty in the forums if you've been paying attention, and I'm just here to promote relatively sane discourse between the changes and the no changes camps. That is the ultimate aim of this podcast, guys, and I really hope I get that across through the delivery of each episode. So that's really the reason as to why I'm doing this. I mean, the other reason why is I check every day, as I'm sure many of you do, for updates on WoW Classic. When is Blizz going to release some info? When are we going to get another interview like the J. Allen Brack one that we had the other day? Give us something, someone, and obviously we get so little. So just in that great desire for information on a daily basis, I thought, you know what, screw it. I'll somewhat help to fill the void, guys, and I'm going to give you something that you can check in with twice a week, just as a little bit of a tickle in the right spot for your classic WoW fix, and I really hope that you enjoy the ride, guys. And like I said, even though I'm not exactly the go-to authority on WoW, look, I wasn't a hardcore raider, guys. I just put in the hours, I had my fun. I wouldn't quite call myself casual, but maybe somewhat of an in-betweener. But look, guys, I do know the game, I do have fun in it, and I just want to basically give back to the community that I feel that I've been involved with so much over the years in just keeping tabs of where WoW has been going. Now, how we're going to do this, guys, is for this very first episode, as I mentioned at the start of the show, we're going to break it down into segments, and I just hope to entertain you as much as possible. Are you not entertained? Here we go with the very first edition of Forum and Fauna. Each Sunday, Countdown to Classic picks the most active threads created within the last week or so from the official Classic forums and the WoW Classic Reddit thread. I then highlight and discuss what players are talking or arguing about in relation to WoW Classic. Now, the first post that I've picked, guys, was one that picked up a fair few bits of feedback along the way in the last week. Now, this was a post titled Nostalgia Goggles, posted by a player named Shiree on February 15th. This one piqued my interest because here was the opening post. It said, quote, "Do you think that the majority of players have this idea of the quote-unquote good old days, but WoW Classic definitely won't capture what made it special at the time?" End quote. An interesting post, and it obviously poses two very different arguments in relation to WoW Classic, guys. The first one being, yes, your nostalgia goggles are absolutely blinding you from what WoW really was, aka flawed. Or the second argument being, the glasses are rose-tinted for a reason. That game was amazing. So what I really pose to do here, guys, is we're going to hear from both sides of the coin. I will give you input from both camps from what people have been saying on the forums. I'll slip in some commentary of my own here and there. But really, guys, this is just reporting back to you what players are saying. Now, the first argument that we get from the official WoW forums, before I go into the post, I'll give you a few of the dot points on what the first camp says about why people might have rose-tinted glasses in relation to WoW. Now, it's no secret that obviously a few of the changes camp, or many WoW players in general, sort of will fall on their swords in a way and say that, sure, look, WoW, the vanilla WoW, obviously, was a little bit grindy at times. It was somewhat of a time sink. Sure, it had bugs. I mean, those bugs have been well documented, and the no changes crowd obviously have been quite loud about, hey, we're okay with bugs. Like, as long as we get classic and you don't touch it, that's fine. Other things like raid and dungeon issues, class balance issues, other players sort of ruining your experience on a raid night if they aren't quite up to snuff, if they're maybe making the same mistakes on certain instances of raids on a regular basis, and you feel like you can't progress because you're beholden to what other players are doing. Things like PvP griefers, we've all had our moments with them, or perhaps we were one at a certain point. There's also the argument from people that Legion has basically, or retail or Legion, however you term it, has fixed the mistakes of Classic. So you'll miss the improved version once you realize and you're swimming back in Classic land. You'll be like, oh, God, actually, this isn't that great. I really kind of do miss the fixes that the evolution of WoW brought. Now, those are the arguments for that side of the coin. Obviously, the opposite arguments would kind of go as follows, and people sort of repost back with, well, why did we fall in love with WoW in the first place? And there are things like the content was markedly different to what we're getting now in retail. There just was a different vibe, and people fell in love with the quest lines and the lore that you got in vanilla as opposed to what we're delivered nowadays. The design, the quest design, the dungeon design, the raid design, again, there is somewhat of a different feel, tone to things nowadays. And obviously some people pine for how it was back in the day. The social aspect of the game is another argument, and I do understand this in that people feel that before things like Look for Group, or automatic tools that just helped you, not really do much work in terms of talking to people in order to get where you were going. The social aspect back in vanilla was it promoted actually having to get off your ass and do something, talk to this person, jump into town, engage people, and actually build relationships and potentially friendships that could not only have your character progress within the game, but also forge bonds that maybe might work out outside of the game. And I know a lot of you guys say, look, I made some amazing friends in WoW. I see these people. My guild travels to meet up for a beer. I hear those stories all the time, guys, and they're actually quite touching to hear, to be honest with you. And finally, you get things like, look, WoW was just fun back in the day. It was flat out fun, and people feel like the combination of a lot of these reasons that I've just given make the game something different and a different experience entirely to what it was versus what it is. The final point is obviously a lot of these no changes, the no changes crowd say that is, if it's nostalgia only, then why? Why do private servers do so well? And we do get, obviously there's not a lot of numbers that come back in terms of the private server involvement, but obviously they've been around for quite some time, and it is a known quantity within the community that yes, these things do exist. There's more than one of them, and there's plenty of people on them. And it's also these people on the private servers that very much so seem to have gotten us where we are today, with Blizzard finally caving in and actually officially giving us a version of vanilla that we have pined for so long. So those are the two sides of the argument, guys. I just want to kind of summarize those 2 points in relation to this particular post on the forums. And now I'm going to point you to some actual specific posts that people have been putting up on that kind of bolster both sides of the argument. Now, these are really just food for thought for everyone, guys. And look, like I say, you might say, what's my horse in the race? And look, guys, I lean no changes. I really do. But at the end of the day, if you want to know a little bit more about me and where I lie, I'm just going to take what I'm given and I'm going to play it. I'm not one of these guys that goes like, oh my God, put in this feature and I am out. Oh my God, an extra shadow? Good luck getting my money, buddy. No, I'm not like that, guys. Blizzard can do whatever they want with this, and I'm gonna play it. They're going to get my money. Call me silly, hey. But at the end of the day, do I have a preference? Sure. Am I going to get angry about getting that preference across? No. But anyway, I just wanted to set that up, and now we're going to get through a few things. Okay, post number 1. This is from a player called Model Citizen. Now, Model Citizen says, you might have a point. This is in relation, obviously, to the original post. You might have a point if the nostalgia theory wasn't proven wrong by the hundreds of thousands of people who've played private servers over the past few years, proving that there's a market for classic vanilla WoW. Not to mention, the game is 100% different now than it was back then. So no to nostalgia. Now, that's an interesting point. And as I mentioned before, it really has to be kept to the forefront of one's mind that these players on the private servers, and look, guys, I might have dabbled in a private server or two myself, and their loud minority voices have really gotten us where we are today. Blizzard commented on this many years ago with the now very, very famous comment of, you think you want it, but you don't. Trust me, you don't. Paraphrasing horribly there. Yet they've obviously changed their tune, and now here we are. It is coming. They've realized that these numbers, and I have no doubt, and I'm sure no one has any doubt whatsoever, guys, that Blizzard has been very much so monitoring the private server community by way of sort of super spies in those games and sort of figuring out how it's all going. But they've worked it out that there is a thing called demand. And obviously with them having the best supply, they're engaged in making a bit of coin off of this venture. So the number of players on the private servers and the amount of time they have they've dedicated to characters on those private servers have sort of shown that no, it is not nostalgia. This is not rose-tinted glasses, not the situation for that. People aren't checking in and dabbling for a couple of hours and then going, you know what, fuck this, it's actually not as great as I remembered. No, they're going on the full roller coaster ride and they're having a great time. So that's a great point from Model Citizen. That's something that you have to keep in, as I said, the forefront of your mind. However, we then get a comment such as this one from Boron Element, who says that I was a young teen when I played vanilla, so that's definitely a concern of mine. What makes me so excited now as an adult is knowing that I can utilize the mechanics and truly experience what it had to offer. Now, this comment raises another very good point in the perhaps it is nostalgia argument in terms of how old were you when you played vanilla? And you have to cast your mind to what kind of a factor that is going to play in terms of your reception of the new iteration of Vanilla WoW. Now, there is obviously a vast amount of people, guys, that were reasonably young. I mean, I don't want to say like your formative years or things like that, but we all have rose-tinted glasses for the video games that we loved at a certain age. Like, I'm 35 years old, guys, so my golden era was kind of the early 90s. I have a very, very soft spot for games like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy III, things of that nature, Earthbound, blah, blah, blah. You know, Super NES games that just ripped it up. I'm always going to view those games slightly through rose-colored glasses. Were they still amazing? Absolutely. But is my judgment slightly affected by the fact that I was a wide-eyed teen at the time? Perhaps. And it's really something that I think a lot of the community has to somewhat at least think about. Now, you can discount this, and I hear the no changes crowd or the non-nostalgia crowd going, rabble, that's bullshit. No, it was a great game. That's why we love it. Stop trying to say that we loved it for any other reason than the fact that it was just an amazing gameplay experience. That's fine. I'm just saying that this is something that you do need to slightly take into account. Now, I cast my mind back to when I originally played WoW. I was going through law school at the time, guys. I had very little to do outside of I didn't study that much. Luckily, still got through. But I was playing a lot of WoW because I was a university student. The world was my oyster. I had a lot of time on my hands. I had a girlfriend who I loved and adored at the time. Not anymore, but things were working. So I do view WoW as a slightly lovely experience due to that time of my life that I was playing it. However, I am still very, very excited to play Classic WoW when it comes out, whether it be in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, 2 years' time, or whatever it might be. I am going to be all in, and I've got no doubt that I'm going to love it just as much. But the argument is definitely there. Will it be perhaps 20% less exciting because I've kind of got the been there, done that feel, and oh yeah, I remember this, and I thought this was a little bit more fun last time. Oh, last time I played an undead rogue, I thought I had a wild time. Why am I kind of yawning now? Just something to really think about, guys, and think about where you were and what you were doing when you first played WoW, and if that's really going to affect how you think of it this time. The next post I'm going to highlight, guys, is a post from a player called Anatharia. And Anatharia tells us, the private server community is what got us these servers in the first place. People who have been playing vanilla for years already. So I'd say that most people know what they want in vanilla. Not because of nostalgia, but because they love the game. And the reason I bring up this post, guys, is for me this highlights gameplay. What made you fall in love with this game? Was it nostalgia? Seems like a long time ago now when we joke about things like World of Warcraft and the addictive nature of this game. But guys, it was addictive for a reason because it was such ahead of its time MMO, and we hadn't quite seen anything like it. We hadn't quite played anything like it, particularly with so many other people around us. The interactive experience and the thought of jumping into a world where you can literally see the hundreds of players in front of you who you know are sitting behind another keyboard somewhere else in the world and doing the exact same thing that you're doing, perhaps staring around with starry eyes going like, fuck, look at this. This is awesome. What do I do? Who are you? Hi. Adventuring? Sure, I'd love to. Quest? Hogger? What's that? I don't know. Let's go. That was all part of it, guys. And it was that experience as well as the gameplay that people loved. It wasn't just something that, because it was 15 years ago, we go like, oh, yeah, like, you know, I love movies from 15 years ago, but I can still enjoy things from the past, not because I'm deeply rooted in the past, but because it worked for me and it will still work now. And obviously, I still think with the changes that have come through in retail, there's enough of the structure of the original game there that people still play through now that shows that people are still into it. People are still into MMOs, guys. Quests, go collect quests, go do this, go collect 10 skins here and report back there and go on a raid there and dungeon here and talk to this guy and trade some gold and all of that jazz, guys. We're into it. That's the general structure of the game and people are still playing. Millions of people are still playing. The next post, guys. A player called Latherfowl says, I find certain game mechanics and pacing, being leveling and gear acquisition, etc., more enjoyable than others. Class structure and gameplay to mention a couple. But one thing, nostalgic glasses aside, there's hardly any new players. So you'll be playing with other people whose expectation on what is to come will already be learned. Sorry, I'm trying to paraphrase what is a very poorly worded post here. That optimism won't be there and therefore won't be infectious to the other players that can't be interacted with, or sorry, can be interacted with. Now, guys, sorry, that was a very, very poorly worded post, but I do understand Latherfowl's point, and here's his point. The crowd that plays WoW Classic will be far more cynical, perhaps, and experienced than they were originally when WoW came out. Now, obviously, think about it, guys. 2000 and 2004, 5, 6, vanilla WoW, we're all wide-eyed people who don't know anything about this game. We're learning on the go. Very little YouTube guides. YouTube obviously didn't come out till about 2005, I think. And we're all using Thoughtbot, and we're wondering what the hell is going on? How do we work on certain quests, and what do we do? We're all helping each other, and we're all, like, the chat is filled with, hey man, sure, I can help you with that. I did that the other day. You just go here and you do that. You know what? Fuck it. I'll come and help you do it just because I can. There was a really positive vibe to the game, guys, that I loved. And I personally, perhaps this post is right. We all know now what is to come with this game. All of these dungeons, all of these raids. We've now done them a million times. And will there be an acceptance by the majority of the community in this game for average play? Will there be an acceptance of anything less than perfect? If you turn up to dungeons and raids now and you don't know the optimal strategy to take down certain bosses, will you be cast out? The cynics, will they rule this game? Now, people point to the private servers and they say, just take a sample of those assholes on those servers. They talk down to you. They think they're the bee's knees, blah, blah, blah. Personally, guys, I haven't really got a lot of that. The people I've bumped into on private servers, it's been pretty much the same as what I experienced in vanilla. They've been pretty nice. But the elitism is definitely a concern for people, and I do understand that. And it's something to ponder in that, will we be closed off to anyone? Will the elites be closed off to anyone who's not elite like them? Is this going to be a strange sort of bourgeoisie-ruled game within the WoW community? And I just think that perhaps there is potential for that. I would certainly hope not. I would love nothing more than to If I had problems within the game, which, like I said, I'm far from the WoW professional, if I post something in a general chat, I would love for people to get back to me like they used to do back in the day. People were lovely. And I would help when I could as well. I would love to think that that's going to happen again, guys. And look, perhaps it will. Perhaps it will. People are, we're not all assholes, but let's just see what happens. The next post, guys, is from a player called Zurius. And Zurius says, most definitely, what made it special was the time, not the specific mechanics of vanilla. When you see the no-change crowd, what they care about is not, say, having fun downing X-Boss, but doing it in the same way that they did it 12 years ago. A better question might be, would all these people crying for no changes even enjoy WoW Classic if it was released for the first time ever today? That's a great question, and it really should stimulate a bit of thought between you guys and girls hearing this podcast. Are we stuck in a portion in time? Would the WoW players pining for WoW Classic now? Let's hypothesize that WoW Classic we've never had it. It's never, ever happened. I know. Perish the thought, guys. But let's say it was released right now. February 2018. Here's a new game for you. It's called World of Warcraft. Do you think you guys who loved WoW Classic back in the day would enjoy that game now? Or do you think that the MMOs that we got... Now, I know you go down a rabbit hole here saying, well, we wouldn't have got the MMOs that we've gotten in the last 10 years if it wasn't for WoW. They were also highly influenced, blah, blah, blah. Let's just pretend and have a bit of fun with me, okay? Pretend games that we got along the way, you were playing those. And then you got this World of Warcraft game. Would you view it through a different prism? Would you be saying things like, what the fuck is this? Where's all my quality of life stuff? I can't even see where I turn in quests. I can't see, I can't see this. I can't see that. All the different little things, guys. Really think about that. What would you say? What would you give it out of 10? Would it get a positive review even? But just something to sort of chew on for a little while. Now, there's a couple of neutral posts that I sort of enjoyed as well. The first one is from a player called Corruptress. And Corruptress says, it will if people make the effort to play like they did in vanilla. If they forget DPS meters, rankings, best in slot gearing, class viability, and such, people will get the feeling that they did in the past. If they try to play vanilla like Legion, or how the private server community seems to, then it won't be close. That's a good point. That's a very good point. The attitude is on us, guys. How people not only interact within this game, but receive it is on us. It can go either way here. The nostalgia glasses... If we just basically shut the fuck up and have a bit of fun, it's not going to be nostalgia. It's going to be a great game. It will all work. But if we do gravitate towards elitism, crunching numbers, focusing on nothing but DPS, rankings, best in slot, class viability, as Corruptress says, and it becomes a really, really cold evaluation of what you do in this game and who you are doing it with, and whether they can basically get you to where you want to go, as opposed to just trying it and having fun, we're going to have very, very different experiences. The next sort of neutral post that I enjoyed was from a player called Toriel. And Toriel says, I enjoy the live game and I enjoy vanilla WoW. There, I said it. It has nothing to do with nostalgia for some. Some people, like myself, may just enjoy the RPG experience as a whole. Couldn't have ended on a better point myself. Some people can have both, guys. There is a crowd out there that will enjoy both. They will dabble in live, they will dabble in vanilla. That very well may occur. And you know what? There is nothing wrong with that. The venom that some people have for retail players, the venom that some people have for classic players. I know it sounds lame, guys, but can't we all get along and, maybe both have their merits? Even though I want to play vanilla WoW, but still. Moving on, guys, the second post that I want to talk about this week on the forums and threads. This was a really interesting one, guys. This was a post on Reddit, on the Classic WoW Reddit thread titled Terribly Long WoW Classic Survey, posted by a user called Toraka42. Now, I know there was that survey going around a few months ago, straight after the announcement that many, many people took part in, and that everyone sort of on YouTube and things like that were talking about for some time. This is a new one that's obviously only about a week old, and its purpose was to delve a little bit deeper and also give more answering options to sort of get some kind of a better gauge on how people really feel about potential changes or a lack of changes to the WoW Classic that we are going to get. So the post said, as I said, from Taraka42, I suppose posting a survey about WoW Classic is not exactly an original thing to do. Despite that, I can't recall seeing one where both the intended playstyles and wishes regarding various features are asked. I also wanted to offer a slightly wider scale of possible answers than just yes or no that some other surveys have used. So the question here, I guess some people do suggest this, though, and I can hear some of you sort of thinking in the back of your heads, by even talking about stuff like this, like surveys and putting the possibility of changes to people, are we subtly promoting change? Are we making it look like we're even almost open to the concept, and we should just fucking stop talking about all this? Because if we're talking about it, it makes Blizzard think that we're okay with any kind of change they make, or some kind of change. And I don't know. I'm not sure how I really feel about that. I mean, it's fun. Surveys are fun, guys, particularly about WoW Classic. I do enjoy taking part in them, and I love seeing the results. In this particular survey, about 2,000 people have done this one so far, which I thought was it's obviously enough to get some kind of a semi-decent look into what the answers mean. And I'm going to go through a fair few of these answers that really drew my attention, guys, that I think will get your motor running. Now, the first one I want to go through is, just quickly, during what periods have you played at the level cap on the official servers? Interestingly, I don't know, maybe it's just me, only 55.5% of the survey users hit the level cap in vanilla. Now, I can already hear a lot of you sort of alarm bells going off, going, that means this survey was taken by all the filthy retail players. And guys, I just take that with a grain of salt. I don't think retail players are filthy. I'm just sort of joking about what other people might say. But yeah, I mean, perhaps it does. If there is the proposition that if you didn't hit 60 in vanilla, then what were you doing really? But obviously some people came to the game late. A lot of I met some people who loved vanilla who didn't actually pick it up until a couple of months before BC came out. So it definitely does make sense in a way, but I just thought it was an interesting figure nonetheless. Anyway, moving right along, the next question that I wanted to look at was what class you intend to choose in WoW Classic for your main character. Now, this, it's sort of something that I'm weighing into because I haven't decided yet, guys, what class I'm going to play. I'm leaning towards Warrior. I played a Rogue in WoW Vanilla, and I wasn't an Alcoholic. So really I would say 90% of my WoW experience has come as a Rogue, and it is strange playing the game only with one class when you can't really see it through the eyes of these other classes and what they do. Have I dabbled? Absolutely, of course. I've started an alt in every class, but I didn't get it beyond sort of level 10-ish. So I don't really know what the other classes do in the mid to end game, and all I know is the rogue style of play. But I don't want to do that again. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily want to have the same experience again in terms of class. Whilst we all want to go through the content again, yes, give me my WoW Classic, absolutely. I want to do all those quests again. I want to do all the dungeons and the raids again. I don't want to necessarily do it with the same gameplay mechanic, just mashing the same buttons and the same abilities. Let's mix it up. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try a new class. And I'm sort of, like I said, I'm leaning towards warrior. Now, what are other people leaning towards? Well, via this survey, 15% have said warrior, and that is the number one leader in the clubhouse at the moment. Of classes that people have actually picked. The actual leader is 15.4% of people saying, I don't know. So that's the camp that I'm in, and obviously some of you may be in as well. Second up, guys, mage. 11.4% of responders said they will be rolling a mage. Next was very close, 11.3% with a priest. So I don't know if that's necessarily surprising to a lot of people, warrior, mage, priest being the top three. I don't know. I always kind of presumed that hunter and rogue were right up there, but that's not the case here, guys. We've got rogues with 9.7%, and funnily enough, I found this actually quite surprising. Hunters at 7.9%. I don't know if that's a backlash with the old huntard kind of thing that you had to deal with, but who knows? Anyway, the next question, guys. Flying mounts. Oh, God. Well, do you want flying mounts in WoW Classic? Now, guys, look, I understand the quality of life argument for the yes, give us flying mounts. I'm personally against this one. People say it doesn't change the gameplay. I think it does. That's just me. But interestingly, well, perhaps not surprisingly, 34.6% of people said that they don't like the thought of flying mounts in any way, shape, or form. And 56.1% of people said, I will not play WoW Classic if this is implemented in any form, which sounds about right. Now, again, I'm not in the camp, guys, of taking my toys and going home and saying, I'm not playing if you make certain changes. Like, look, if there were flying mounts in the games, I'm still going to play it, guys. But I do find it funny that some people sort of do the, like, that's it, I'm out. But I understand their sentiment, so I do hear where they're coming from. Next one, guys. This was another funny one. Optional I stress this word. Optional auto loot. Now, basically the question says, if there is an option to just be able to right mouse click and have auto loot going on, how interested are you in that? And here's the thing. Where is it, guys? It says the 3.6% of responders that said, I won't play WoW Classic if this is implemented in any form. That one made me giggle a little bit. Like, that's not something that's going to give me an aneurysm. I don't necessarily ask for it, but fuck it, I'll take it. Whatever. Anyway, moving along, guys. Optional, the big one. Here we go. This is something that people have definitely been talking about. Optional high detail models and optional high detail textures. Now, this was a little bit interesting because there seems to be a lot of, I don't know, for me there seems to be a lot of dissent on the forums about these high detail models and textures. Well, maybe not a lot of dissent, but maybe just sort of over 50% from what I've seen of people like, classic is classic, don't touch it, I don't even want one skerrick of a graphical enhancement, just fucking don't touch it. Here's how the responders thought about this one on this survey. To optional high detail models, 14.5% said they don't like that, and 4.5% said they won't play if it's there. Interestingly, 30% will tolerate it, 32.3% said they like it, and 4.6% said they'll tolerate it, but there might be ways to make it better. I'm not quite sure what that means. On the textures side of things, it changed slightly. People seem to be a little bit more open to the textures. 9.9% saying they don't like it in any form, and 3.3% saying they won't play if it's in the game. We've got 37.5% saying they like it, 32.4% saying they'll tolerate it, and 4.3% saying they'll tolerate it, but there might be a way to make it better. Just a little bit interesting on that one. Okay, moving right along to the next thing. We've got optional display of quest target on map. Now, this is something I actually want to talk about, guys, because we talk about quality of life changes and their impact on the gameplay experience. Now, here's the one thing. I just find that with these kind of changes, you're going to let's say it's not there, as my cat comes and meows. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll get a view of one of my 4 cats who may come and guest star on the podcast every now and again. And if you're just hearing the podcast, you've just heard the meow. Either way, back to these display of quest targets on the maps. Let's hypothesize that they don't make this change. What do you all do? Well, we all have a million mods that sort of might help in some manner or another. And if we don't have the mods, well, what did we do back in the day? We Alt-Tab and go straight on Thoughtbot or, obviously a million other alternatives these days and just look up how to do certain quests. The vast, vast, vast minority of players will just try and solve the sort of quote-unquote puzzle by themselves, guys, and be like, no, I don't remember this one, but I'll spend 45 minutes looking around and trying to find out where to go. I maybe it's just me, guys, but I feel like those players are few and far between, and all of us just kind of want to get to where we're going as quick as possible. So whilst I don't necessarily need these display of quest targets on my map, I'm just going to go online instantly and find out the coordinates straight away anyway. So I'm not asking for the change, but I'm just saying it's something to think about, that how are we really tackling this effect on gameplay? Anyway. WoW tokens, guys. Whoa, this is a doozy. Sorry, I didn't even give you the classic survey response to that last one, but I'll try and find it now. But WoW tokens, it's definitely something that people are pretty vehement about not being in the game. And to be honest with you, I'm in that camp as well, guys. It's something that I think it just changes everything too much. I mean, there is, the dirty word is it's somewhat of a pay-to-win kind of aspect in terms of just accumulating gold, and then you get the gear you want, and then obviously, it's still bind on equip stuff, but I don't know, it can still kind of help. Now, just finding the community's input on that, they said in regards to WoW tokens that, well, yeah, this is not that surprising, guys. 32.6% of people will not play the game if that's implemented in any way. 35.2% of people say they don't like that in any way, shape, or form. And you know what? That feels about right, guys. By the way, if you're interested in the quest target thing, it was 30.8% of people don't like that in any form, and 11.1% said they won't play if it's implemented in any form. Now, next one. Multiple dungeon difficulties. I'm not down with this personally, and this is pretty much what the responders said as well. 26.2%, I won't play if this is implemented in any way. 35.8% said, I don't like this in any way. And that's about right, I think, guys. I think when we talk about classic, the whole, let's do normal mode, let's do heroic mode, it's just... and different rewards along the way. Again, putting things in that weren't there before. You'd have to now create items that weren't there before. And I think that's very much so going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. There's a few other things, guys. Let's get to the big one. Transmogrification. This is such a filthy word now within the community in terms of Classic. And people have been losing their minds over any kind of inference whatsoever that this could be part of the game. And this was one that got one of the easily the biggest dissenting opinions in terms of this survey. 37.5% of people, guys, said, I don't like this in any form, and 40.5% said, I will not play this game if this is implemented in any form. I'm down with that. I think transmog is not on. It's a strange mechanic, guys. Just, I understand that people are into aesthetic changes these days, and the whole option of customization is really in vogue. I've never been one of those guys. I don't care about giving my player haircuts. I don't care about giving my player tattoos. I don't care about changing the look of my weapon or armor. I want my weapon or armor to look like what it's supposed to look like. And if it's shitty and I have to sort of hide my shame in public, then so be it. But when it's awesome, I want to have earned it and walk around and be like, hey, look at this cool sword I got. You know where it's from. You know what I had to do to get it. This is what it is. And not just like, I don't like the look of this sword. I'll make it look like a cooler one. Look, I'm not 100% down with how transmog has transpired through retail because, as I said, I quit during Kata. But it's just I've definitely read up on it. It just seems to be something that I'm not totally down with. Moving right along, guys. Things. I mean, these are the easy ones. I'm not even really going to go through them much. Things like rebalancing raids, rebalancing classes. Altering zones. Altering zones. I mean, that would just be bizarre. Look, you can go online, please do, and check this Reddit thread. There are some really, really interesting answers to these ones. And I think actually we get to some of the interesting answers in the ones I've just said. Like some people are actually, more people than you think are down with weirdly like altering zones and bringing in new quests. And when I preface this with, I mean, compared to patch 1.12.1. Bringing in new quests, new classes even. Like, what, do you want to bring Death Knights into vanilla? Like, just... Maybe there's an argument for it, but I'm not particularly down with that. But the funny one, also achievements, is a little one. I love the... people blow up about we don't want achievements in this game because we don't want things popping up like first step in WoW, congratulations. First AFK death in WoW, congratulations. Congratulations, you just used your first racial slur in WoW. Like, obviously that last one's a bit over the top, but things like that, yeah, I'm not terribly fussed, but I do understand why people are quite against it. Anyway, guys, moving right along to the third topic that I wanted to discuss, and this will be the last one that I bring up for the week. This is a topic that was posted by a player that we mentioned before, Zurius, and it relates to quality of life, something that we have been discussing. And the post goes as follows. It seems to get thrown around that people asking for quality of life improvements are asking for easy mode, and that's a fallacy. Quality of life changes do not make the game easier, but what they do is enable people to get to and actually attempt the content more easily. A perfect example is guild banks. This will be a huge quality of life improvement, but does not fundamentally change anything about people having items. What it does is make it easier to track and manage what assets a guild has, thereby enabling them to actually use those assets to do content like raiding. There are a number of quality of life improvements that would fall into this category, like Group Finder and Dual Spec. Okay, guys, I can hear your pain, but just bear with me. 2 points to this argument. A, quality of life, or some quality of life, and B, no quality of life. No changes. No changes. Let's look at both sides of the coin. User Taragor says the following. Most of the quality of life stuff that the purists don't want carry remarkable consequences with them. Here are 4 examples. 1. Guild banks enable bank alts to have their own one-person guilds and get more bag space for their bank alts. 2. Dual spec contributes to the inflation of the economy that already tended to inflate, not just because less people would be respecking, but also because more people would be good at going out there and farming gold as well, causing the inflation to happen even faster. 3. Non-cross-realm LFD is an issue because it causes people to socialize less. Instead of asking around and maybe even using the who list to find a group, they'll say less stuff while they're waiting for the group to form, even if they don't get automatically teleported inside of the instance when the group fills up. And number 4, increasing the view distance changes world PvP and changes the aesthetic atmosphere of the game. If players were meant to have a larger view distance, then they would have used different graphics and models and textures to produce vanilla WoW in 2004. If you're going to advocate for quality of life stuff, it should be for quality of life stuff that doesn't carry any remarkable consequences, such as temporary ignore features that automatically unignores people, such as gold sellers, after 24 hours if selected, or automatic name change notifications to people in your guild and on your friends list via in-game mail or colorblind mode. Interesting point. And sorry, I've just rabbited on a little bit there with 2 relatively long posts, but the reason I did so is they go on about some really, really good points. A, do you want quality of life? And B, what could you tolerate? Or, I mean, obviously C, no changes, no changes. But let's talk quality of life and what it really means, because I think that last post brings up some amazing points in terms of there are, I wouldn't quite go as far as to say game-breaking quality of life improvements, but things that have implications beyond perhaps what you've thought of. And things like that, like the dual spec point that he's raised, and I really love that view distance point that he raises, going like, I don't think you've quite taken into account what something as simple as a view distance change would, the effect that would have on world PvP. And that's a fantastic point. I hadn't even thought of that. That people would like, yeah, obviously, like, that's a bit of a game changer, guys. And you bring things like that into vanilla WoW, all of a sudden, different kettle of fish. And a lot of us are not okay with that. But are there some quality of life changes that you would be somewhat, even if it's a bitter pill to swallow, okay with? You know, the one that comes up a lot is obviously mail and sending multiple items in one mail, as opposed to going through the motions and doing the one by one that we used to do back in the day. Think about that, and how do you feel about that? But the user Smeet says the following: there is a difference between difficulty and tedium. The insane title in Live is tedious to get. I did it. I would not consider it hard. There was no skill component involved. I suppose if you consider having months of grinding time and the mental fortitude to not uninstall the game a skill, then sure, difficult. In the same way, having to make a dozen separate letters to mass mail items isn't hard. It isn't something you'd brag about doing to your friends. Oh yeah? I play a game where it makes you transfer items one at a time. Same thing with guild banks. Although those came with the added benefit of not taking up all of your realm character slots, or an extra subscription so that the guild had access to their items. Plus, it made the game master's job a lot easier when stuff was stolen, since it was leaving a community source and not an individual account that was being shared. Having a guild bank doesn't make the game easier. It removes barriers that weren't part of the actual game. That's what quality of life is. Dual spec is not quality of life. It has significant gameplay implications, especially to hybrids, since it allows them to go between DPS and healing roles more seamlessly, which they were not designed to do. I wouldn't quit Classic if this made it in somehow, but I'd hope that it was prohibitively expensive to offset the serious gold savings that it would offer. Things that remove steps to what should be easy tasks, quality of life, and really shouldn't be as controversial of changes as they have been on here. Things like colorblind mode, guild banks, mail, auction house interfaces, UI improvements all fall under this category. Things that change how your character works, or how enemies behave, or how major systems work, not quality of life, and need to be seriously evaluated for risk of changing the game experience. Things like dual spec, debuff limit, PvP honor system, flying, rebalancing, returning raids, itemization changes, etc. They are in this category. A few I can get behind minor changes to. The majority of these should be dismissed outright to preserve a vanilla experience. Fuck, sorry, that was a long post, and you guys might have fallen asleep during it, but that was one of the better posts that I've read this week, guys, and I really, really wanted to get that all out there because there's quite a few things just really to think about. How far does quality of life go? And how far, perhaps, if you were opposed to Blizzard doing this in any way, but perhaps slightly able to wear it, what would you be able to wear? And I think that from what I've read on the forums, and particularly in this particular thread, people are begrudgingly willing to have a lot of these quality of life changes. Now, I'm not saying, again, don't shoot the messenger, guys. I'm not saying I'm down with it. It's an instance where are we willing to have, and the greatest line in that post is the one at the very beginning. There is a difference between difficulty and tedium. Are we just happy to sign up for tedious things that could be easily bandaged up? Or are we so perverse that we're happy to wear the badge of honor of saying, I did it, I went through the grind, I put in the hours, I did it, not the hard way, but the long way. And look, again, guys, I appreciate both sides of the argument. I know the particular YouTube users, I know the particular posters who would scream at me right now going, how could you even suggest that we change anything? The tedium was part of the experience. That's WoW Classic, and I get it. But you also have to take into account, again, 15 years further down the track, things have changed. We've worked some things out. There is a way to make the game slightly more conducive to the experience that we expect now. The mail is just the fucking mail is a great example. It's just something I think that we really need to sit down and have a bit more of a saner discourse about, in terms of, rather than jumping down each other's throats, just figuring out, just eliminating what do you really, what's off the table? What is 100% off the table? Because some people might even say, the mail's off the table, so I want to do my mail one by one, and then so be it, guys. But that was an interesting one for me. The next post I thought was a fun one was Purist slash... sorry, this is by Ogerin. Purist slash pirate server groups falling behind the then go play retail bulwark is laughable at best, especially when talking about quality of life features. Because pixelated and outdated graphics were challenging, because sitting in Ironforge or Orgrimmar spamming for hours to find groups is challenging, linked flight paths is challenging, updating user interface is challenging, the list goes on. And this is the same group of people who loaded up on their private servers, or pirate servers as he says, and vanilla gameplay with more mods and add-ons than you can imagine in this day and age. What's the challenge in that? Now, that post, guys, is something that I touched on earlier in terms of mods and add-ons. If we are just simply going to, the first thing you do after you load up on WoW Classic is jump straight on the web and grab every mod and add-on conceivable that's been designed for WoW Classic that's going to work and make your life easier. If that's all you're going to do, then why are we sitting here arguing about quality of life? What are we doing here? What do we care? Like, you're going to change the game anyway. That's what we've been doing for years with mods and add-ons. Why do we care what Blizzard does to their UI or what they do slightly to the gameplay in terms of small tweaks like that, when there are mods that do that for you as well? Now, don't get me wrong. If you're someone who has never downloaded a mod or an add-on, and you really, really enjoy that basic WoW Classic experience, then you have every right to get angry right now. No changes! No changes! But I don't think any of us have met that person, guys. And if we're all just going to jump on the add-on train, why not just bypass the need for add-ons and have Blizzard do it anyway? And quite frankly, how about this? If we do have the add-on... if Blizzard does design a UI or a gameplay experience that doesn't meet your expectations, that you're not satisfied with because it's changed something, I don't know, wouldn't someone go out and design a mod or an add-on that just changes it back to what vanilla was for that crowd? I just could see that happening. I don't know. Anyway, something to think about. The next post from a user called Sush. I can't imagine Blizzard making Classic with quality of life. The purist / no changes crowd will run back to their private servers. The retail players probably don't care what happens anyways. It's not like they asked for it. Maybe they'll poke around. That leaves you with the people who say they could enjoy the game with quality of life additions. Does this even make sense fiscally to turn away the crowd that you know is actively hungry for the Classic Vault? Only time will tell. Great fucking post. Here's why. There's a business aspect to all of this, guys, that we're all quite aware of. Why is Blizzard doing this? Money, money, money. Money, money, money. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't go down the cold, heartless Blizzard evil corporation who just doesn't care about us and just wants to make money. Like, they're gamers too, guys. They made an amazing game. They gave us something that was a big part of our lives, and they're quite involved in the product as well. But obviously, reporting to shareholders and making a bottom line that winds up in the black is the end game at the end of the day. And so why would Blizzard put in massive quality of life changes that messes with the original classic experience if that is going to scare away the crowd that actually had them implement this in the first place? The private server users, as we've said earlier, guys, is exactly what got us here. Why would Blizzard, in all their infinite wisdom, do something to piss them off now? Now, I hear the crowd that hears me say that and says, well, they did it before. We had a great game, and then they went all cataclysm on us, and they fucked it up when they listened to the community. And I respect that. But if they've now done somewhat of a U-turn and decided, hey, we are going to give you two different servers, one retail, one classic, they're going to pander to that classic crowd. And if they make something different that's not on the private servers, I just don't think they're that silly. And if they do introduce any quality of life changes, they'll be so negligible that the no changes crowd won't get too worked up about them. But that's just my 2 cents. Now, the final post, guys, on this one is from a user called Clever Demon, who says the following. As for telling someone classic isn't for them, sometimes it is an ignorant statement and sometimes it is not. It is dependent on what or who the statement is made to or about. I personally believe it is for everyone, but a very few. Some make it pretty obvious that it really isn't the game for them. I think it's even easier. If they enjoy live the way it is, classic is not the game for them. Live is. People who enjoy live are not who Blizzard is spending money to make happy because they enjoy live already. Blizzard is already getting their money, so why spend a bunch of money in remaking something those people don't want and didn't ask for? Blizzard is trying to gain back subscribers they lost along the path to live. It's the only reason for them to have the reveal they had and to spend the time and money to develop this. It will potentially gain back millions or billions in lost revenue. If they just cater to the current subscribers, they keep what they have and gain nothing. Very strong point to end on, guys, there, and something to use as a bit of food for thought in terms of why? I just touched on it. Why Blizzard doing this? Think about why this happened. There has to be something in it for them. Video game companies are not that much interested in simply pandering to their fans. There has got to be something in it for them. Unlike this podcast, which I do for free and get nothing out of, usually when people are creating content, there's got to be some kind of cherry on top for them. Blizzard knows this, and they know the lost revenue that they want to get back from all those subscribers. And believe me, they want They've said they're not interested in running 2 games, but you know what they are interested in, guys? Having 2 pots of gold. That's what they're really interested in. And I don't begrudge them at all for that, but I don't think they'll do anything to really fuck that up. Anyway, guys. Okay, guys, now it's time for the next segment of the show, a segment I like to call Anger Management. Each week, guys, I trawl the forums and I bring you the angriest or funniest posts that I can find every week. The first post I bring you guys is the post from a user named Larothea, who says the following. I'm making a paladin tank and you can't stop me. Female dwarf paladin tank. Watch out, haters. Don't care about the quote-unquote right way to play the game. Hey, warriors. I'm going to put plus spell power on my tanking weapon. Deal with it. I do enjoy that one. Okay. The second post I found, guys, is a post from a player named Narcios, who says, Sunken Temple can die in a fiery building. Good food for thought. The third post, guys, is from a user named Valacas, who says, Dear God, you tool. Now, sorry, I should say, replying to obviously something that rubbed him the wrong way earlier. Dear God, you tool. This isn't even the argument at hand. To make it worse, others upvoted you. I would gladly pay $15 a month for Classic. Yet if you are truly naive enough to believe that there will be those who would choose not to maintain their free-to-play experience in a celebrated game in favor of paying, then you should get outside more instead of sitting in front of the computer. How many posts will you embarrass yourself in? Next, we have Zoot and Tie. Honestly, I'm perplexed at what would be necessary to cut through this constant obfuscation and delusion you call reality. Posturing so hard, looking thirsty as fuck. Strawman +1, my dude, for sure. Next is a post from a user called Give Me a Drink. Most people on this sub do in fact want it back. In my opinion, all it does is eliminate many playstyles from the game. For example, imagine you roll a Warlock and decide to level Affliction. You spend 8 days played learning to manage dots on several targets, managing your pet and feared targets, etc. You spend your entire play time on the available PvE specs to do PvE content. You hit 60 and you are now interested in raiding. You jump into 5-mans with your Affliction spec and things go well. You are now attuned to Molten Core. You show up for your first raid and after the first boss, you get booted from the group. What the fuck? Your raid leader kicked you out because you dared use the spec that you learned since level 1. That is not allowed because reasons. Fuck managing your dots and you are a Warlock. Warlocks spam Shadow Bolts. I love how angry people get. Next segment, guys, is a segment I called Winner Winner Chicken Dinner.
It wasn't going to be easy, but they've won it.
With this segment, guys, every week I go through all the posts that I read, and I read a lot of posts for this podcast, guys, and I pick out the best of the week, and these are either the funniest ones that I read or people who gave the best argument on a point that I thought really, really grounded people and made them think, because that's what we reward here on Countdown to Classic. It's a thinking man's podcast, or woman's. Now, first winner, because it's co-winners this week, is this post from a user on Reddit called Beta Less. And it was posted in a thread called I thought vanilla was more about maxing the character that you want to be in the world, not min-maxing stats. Here's what they said. I see so much talk on here about min-maxing racials for PvP and PvE alike. I just want to remind you guys of when you first played vanilla. Did you even consider racial abilities in making your character? Fuck no. If you played a dwarf, it was because you thought dwarves were the shit and you wanted to be one, not because of Stoneform or Fear Ward for priests. I see so many posts here saying that people love that the races have different backgrounds and abilities, that it really adds to the lore and the immersion in the game. And then the same number of people will turn and say that they feel that they are being forced to play a certain race. Be what you want to be in Azeroth. You get to be a fucking adventurer. Who gives a fuck about min-maxing? Let your character be a representation of who you are and that you would be proud to play. That's an amazing point. And again, we've touched on it earlier. What I truly hope WoW Classic turns into, guys, is do what you want. It's the annual Do What You Feel festival. Just min-maxing. Why do we have to, I understand there will be hardcore raid guilds. I do appreciate that. And they will have their own agenda of you need to be this race with this class and do this and do that. But I do hope that the vast majority of players out there will be open to the experience of just letting people have fun. Guys, we're all here to have fun at the end of the day. And it's what drives us. It's what we really remember as our number one fond thing from back in the days. How much fun we had. And we didn't know anything. We're like, yeah, sure. I'll combine this race with this class and it'll be great because we didn't care. Dwarves look cool. Sure, make him a priest. I mean, which is great. But then what if I want to be a warrior or whatever? Just do it. Just do whatever. Be a gnomish rogue. I don't care. Be an undead warrior. I don't care. It's fine. You have fun. That's what this post is saying. I think it's amazing. The next winner I've got, guys, is a post from a user called Turamnab, who says, yes, I'm wearing rose-tinted goggles, and I still will be when Classic launches. You know what the best part is? They won't be transmoggable. And I'm adding in a little mic drop at the end of that one. I think that's great. The final post, guys, is this one for winners. The second final post, I should say. A user named Hexen. Now, he says the following. Now, I have to read the post that he was replying to. The post goes as follows. To me, no dungeon was very difficult except when pugging. Okay, with that being said, pickup groups usually are getting bottom-of-the-barrel low information players, which is sort of like a Trump voter, not wise enough to know how to properly play the game or their class or what's at stake with their vote. That same mindset is toxic in-game and out of it. Now, regardless of how you feel about that post, the winner is the reply, which is this one that was posted by Hexen. Agreed completely. We cannot let Mechgineer Thermoplug get 2 scoops of nuclear codes and irradiate Ironforge. We need to get tough and extend Thoradin's wall to Dunmoreau. When Gnomeregon sends their gnomes, they're not sending their best. They're sending lepers and trogs, and some, I assume, are good engineers. I enjoyed that one. I thought that was good. And obviously, if there's winners, guys, there's got to be a loser. So I just quietly picked this post by a player. You know what? I'll leave his name out of it. And it goes like this. And this was in reply to the last post that I just read. Okay, so you don't like President Trump. But what does that have to do with anything with classic WoW? You are the prototypical Baron's Chat person. No substance at all with your banter. I love the users that can't pick up on people using sarcasm and having a bit of fun. But anyway, it happens. Guys, now it's time for the next segment, and that is Memory Lane. Each week, I reach out to our listeners and I say, what was your funniest vanilla WoW memory? And thankfully, guys, a few people got back to me this week, even though I hadn't released an episode yet, and I will happily read out their responses on the air. The first comes from a Twitter user by the name of Daisamin, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who says the following. I was Forsaken, level 5, fresh out of Death Knell. I was sent to steal pumpkins from the nearby farm, but Scarlet Crusade was patrolling everywhere. It never occurred to me to kill them, so I spent an hour waiting for them to walk away so I could get near a pumpkin and run away. I loved that because it brought up thoughts of like a Metal Gear Solid stealth type game that they didn't realize they could just kill them. It's absolutely fantastic. And we all have these moments, guys, from back in the day. We're all a pro now, but we all did stupid things back in the day. The next submission comes from a user named _Scanlines. And he sent me something called the Stranglethorn Incident, which is with the title of Corpse Camping, Losers in Stranglethorn. Now, this was an amazing piece because basically it told the story of Scanlines getting into it with another user from back in the day. And it's just all about PvP griefing. So basically, Scanlines killed another player in Stranglethorn Vale, and it didn't go down too well, and he wanted an apology. It started with the following private messages. I'll tell you, fucker. You ganking me caused me to get angry because I wanted to grind. I fucking took this aggression out on my girlfriend. I didn't hit her, but we argued a lot about stuff, but it started off because of you. I want an apology. And so Scanlines obviously got back to him saying, look, mate, what you do to your girlfriend has nothing to do with me. You should probably seek some help. And it didn't go down too well, where basically the other player started suggesting that, well, he said that, I really hope you feel bad right now, because if you don't, I'll be looking down at you from heaven. And the player says, well, I don't feel bad in the slightest, and I don't believe in heaven, so good luck with all that. I love when players threaten other players, and you get things like the following where he goes, you obviously can't say sorry for your actions, and one day we might meet and I'll personally beat the sorry out of you. That's a good one. I like it. And this was the kicker for me, where he says, I bet every time you speak to someone about WoW and they ask you for your name, you will frown and come up with another discussion, just in case it was me. Yeah, because that's what everyone's afraid of, accidentally bumping into the people in WoW that they gank and being worried that they'll beat the living shit out of them. God, I miss classic WoW when I go through stuff like that. Just the occasional online argument and chat, the whispers with dickheads, and Oh, God, I can't wait for this game to come back. And guys, that's why I'm doing this podcast, because I can't wait. And I'm going to come to you every week with just a little bit of news. I know we're not getting much from Blizzard, but I hope to give you something just to get people talking about what will be an amazing game. So please, guys, if you have enjoyed this, I implore you, tell your friends. Grab the WoW players that you know and say, hey, there's a guy that's covering some stuff that people are talking about on the forums. There's a guy covering off on the news about WoW Classic. And I would really appreciate your support. And guys, please, by all means, if you want to get back to me, if you want to have input into the show, tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you did like. I am open to suggestions. Get back to me on all social media platforms or email feedback@countdowntoclassic.com. Visit the website, guys. Post on the post that I put up there and let me know what you think. Your feedback will help this show grow, and the more I hear from you, the more we can do with it. So, guys, I really look forward to this adventure, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks, guys.